recording. Start the stream. So I want to jump in and do a quick sound check for me.
Sarah and I are both really quiet.
Yeah, keep talking.
Hello.
And Kit, could you just say your ABCs?
A, B, C, D.
Perfect.
Yay!
Perfect. And then, all right. We sound good? I think we're good. Alrighty.
I guess we sound good. As good as we can, usually.
The Villains Talk Show with C4, Sara, Vike, Insanieac, Sir Jeremy, and the Great Grease Goblin with special guest Kit Falbo. Hello and welcome to the Villains Talk Show. I'm C4 as always. Beside me is Sara, Vike. In the corner is the Great Grease Goblin. In the chat is Insanieac, and
we'll have Jeremy in 5.
hopefully he'll be here soon. And below is our special guest and writer, Kit Falbo. We are your villains of the Villains Talk Show. We basically talk about writing, D&D, and other things. And yeah, today's special guest is a writer. We've all taken chances at looking at different books of his. We're gonna pepper him with some questions, and as well as pretty much focus what I really want, as I put in the chat. Writing, because with a published writer, because I've only ever published poetry, and Sarah's on the verge of publishing her first book.
That's very confident of you to say.
We want to focus on the actual profession of writing, because that's something that we're both, I think all of us are trying to get into. And also, when you come to writing a book, there's also concept and execution, because I've started writing a lot of books, but it takes a lot of willpower, I'm sure, to basically finish a book. And hopefully Kit will give us some nice insights as to what that is. And if we still have some time, and if he's willing, we might throw some questions about his books and the ideas he was thinking. All in all, I'm pretty excited. And Kit, plug yourself.
I'm Kit. I'm a science fantasy, I like to think of it. Lit RPG, which is science but literary role-playing game. Basically books that focus around some plot elements of playing a video game or having game-like mechanics as part of the plot or driver of the story. And most popular book is The Crafting of Chess, which is about a teenage chess hustler playing a VR MMO. Space opera with a techno wizard called Intelligence Block, where he's kind of a streamer and a farmer, and a novella, Her Job, which is a virtual reality space opera heist. This is a little fun thing that I did. I also do poetry, but sell it.
Well, that's how long have you been doing it? That's my first question. I have looked through your list. I've even gazed at some of your poetry. So you don't have to tell us your age. Obviously, we're all keeping that secret. I look mysteriously young for my age, but how long have you been in the profession? I
didn't actually publish or self-publish until early 2019. But I mean, I've been working on the craft of writing for decades before that. Kind of have to slowly build up that flair and base understanding. I mean, I'm not saying you can't publish when you're young, but having a more solid understanding of the craft, which just takes a lot of writing and a lot of failures and reading thousands and thousands of books and figuring out how they do it, how you would like to do it, and oftentimes the good inspiration is, I want to do that better. And that's a lot of what influences.
I want to touch on your first point there. I definitely agree. I was told at a young age from one of my English teachers in high school that you should always keep your writing. This is something I think also Stephen King also echoed. And I've looked back at some of my young writing, although I had some unique ideas. You're right. Like even when I was in university producing some of my higher levels of writing, I still look back at it now, and you're right. Reading and experience really, really helps you filter out and create a more complete book, more complete story. Even things that I thought I wrote incredibly well, I look back at today and I'm like, oh, I could have expanded this. I could have described this better. I could have had this scene play out better. And so I completely agree. Let's just talking about your chess book, because that's the one I actually read. It's funny because the whole time I'm reading it, one of my projects that I've always wanted to write. It's one of the hardest books. I've only ever gotten like the first few sentences down. Is I've always wanted to write a choose your own adventure, where instead of all your choices leading to different endings, everything bleeds into one, like an encyclopedia. The idea would be, it doesn't matter what you choose down this pathway, no matter where you start in the book, the start is the multiple endings, but where you end up, it's all the same. And that's always been and so I've had a lot of fun reading your book and about how to implement games. Or turn literary into a game. I kept thinking about, I don't know if you've played this game, but I kept thinking Oregon Trail every time I was reading your book, creating a text game and one with multiple endings. And I can't help but ask if that was an inspiration or...
Well, I mean, I've played Oregon Trail. Playing video games, a lot of inspiration comes from that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of inspiration from anime, a lot of inspiration from just pop culture. Ready Player One inspired me a lot, but there's a lot in there that I thought that I could do better.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also a giant fan of Easter eggs and cultural references, just not as in your face, you know? I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but even if you read some of the classic literary, they have Easter eggs in those books as well. Create the connection of world building. It's one of the key tenets of world building is that you have so much hidden, and that using cultural references kind of lets you use a few sentences to have a deeper context simply through the fact that some of the audience will have additional understanding by understanding that. So I'm a big fan of it.
Sorry, I was just gonna say I completely agree, and it can be one of the hardest things to write, especially correctly. So it's not overt. You want to be coy at the same time as you want to at least have a reward for people who've read those things or who've actually experienced those novels or those moments. And I completely I completely agree. Just taking it back a little to actually writing. So one of the things I touched on is it's hard to finish a work, and it actually sell it. You said you're self-published. I know that's a huge step for me because all my work is for free online. And so I can understand there's a certain level of nerves to that. Do you want to express your feelings on that? Please.
Yeah, I'm definitely curious about self-publishing.
self-publishing is, I mean, it's tricky. You take on all the costs, like the cover and the editing and advertising and publicity yourself. Now, the way traditional publishing is nowadays, they'll often do the cover and the editing, though you'll have control, but they don't really help as much with the, say, publicity and marketing outside of having your book is in the store because we say it is in fields of bookshops. It's a huge thing, but they really demand that the author is actually, you're actually not trading away that much. And unless you get lucky, all of this is luck. And when you go out and when you do things, what you're doing is you're maximizing your chances at maybe this podcast will go big and I'll sell more content. I don't know. But
we hope that too.
Yeah,
That's a mutual thing.
Right. So I like self-publishing because it lets me stay in control. Control is big. Most deals for traditional publishing both take forever to get. You get an agent, and then even then, unless you somehow manage to get really lucky and get a bidding war, which is rare, which means just hitting the sweet spot, the right connections, just get lucky again. Generally, the amount of money you'll get for the advance really isn't that big. I think I heard an author say 1,000 nowadays, and it is difficult to make even that much self-publishing. But that's money that comes out of your royalty. Generally, you'll make a very small.
And I completely understand that. Sorry. Yeah, you cut out for a second. I thought you were done. But yeah, I completely get that. I mean, me and my family, we run a small business together. And so even that, like, I completely get it. Putting yourself out there, and it's basically running the gambit. You have to self-advertise. No one's going to promote you as much as you are. And so it's completely understandable. It looks like Sir Jeremy finally joined us. Hey there, Jeremy.
Hello, sir.
Let's just crank you up. But yeah, what would you say? So in terms of design, so I'm assuming by what you're saying is you designed all the covers yourself. So when we scrolled through all your book pages, those were all self-designed, or did you luck out and have someone design them for you? Please.
Well, I designed the crafting of chests, which is, ironically, it's the one that has sold the best. I purchased the cover for Intelligence Block. I tried to design it myself, and nothing I could really feel fit the tone of the book.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the current job, you make connections with other authors. And another author kind of buys their art in bulk. You can buy kind of like bulk licenses,
Mm-hmm.
And they donated a cover to me from their collection of art. And when you buy licenses, you generally have a limited number of runs with it. I doubt I'll ever sell that many that I'll need to change it. But and I've seen, and the artworks get used by other people. That's why you see these covers the same, because all these people are doing is they're buying this art and slapping on their title, and you run that risk if you don't do it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But so I made different decisions for different books. I have a hard time saying what is, simply because of in some ways my most amateurish one, even though in some ways I like how it's designed, did the best, because it is all luck, but you still have to meet a certain standard of expectation of your audience.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, the RPG audience is a bit more forgiving than most, but if I was to try to do romance or something, I'd definitely need to do something a bit out of expectation.
So, thank you. Yeah, no, that I never actually thought about that before, but thank you. Let's open it up. Sarah, do you have any questions? I'm sure you must.
I mean, I do, but I'm not great at thinking of things like that on the spot. I guess something I'm curious about is just because I don't know, I don't know what route I'm going to go. I am writing a book that I would like to publish in some form. I don't care as much about having control over it, over things like the cover design and whatnot. But I don't know what route I'm going to go or what will be available to me. So I guess, how have you found the process of self-publishing? Do you find that you enjoy it? Do you like doing it that way?
It's a bit mixed. I mean, in some ways, I'd love it to be traditionally published, but I never actually sent many queries up. I mean, that whole process is a whole another level.
Yeah, yeah, I've looked into it a bunch, and yeah, I know it's a whole huge process.
I recommend watching Sanderson's videos talking about the business side. Brandon Sanderson does class, and there's a lot of good information in that. I mean, even he kind of recommends if you can do the hybrid model. I mean, for one thing, you have to write as fast as Sanderson, which is difficult. And that would be basically...
I'm sorry, I don't know who Sanderson is. Could you guys let me in on this?
Brandon Sanderson?
Brandon Sanderson, the author of The Cosmere Shared Universe, probably one of the top 5.
He finished The Wheel of Time.
Do my job.
Making money, right?
Dan has all of his books. They're all in our house, over there.
I guess I need to read something.
Yeah, he's one of the biggest names in fantasy right now.
Yeah. I'm honestly not. I mean, I like his writing good enough, but he's not one of my top tier writers. But he certainly produces them.
I actually have read very little of his writing, but yeah, he writes so many books. It's a problem for him, really.
Yeah. But he has good information. So,
I've seen a couple of his videos, but I didn't know he had ones on that part of it. So that's great.
Yeah, he is it's general, it's information that you kind of need to have. Basically, the recommendation is that because if you can do a hybrid model, because you do get better royalty payments from self-publishing, and if you can do Patreon, basically whatever income sources you can do. Now, I'm actually not that great at promoting my Patreon or doing the other things I should do, but I understand they exist. I'm kind of busy with home life. But basically, the more diversified you can be, the better off you will be in the industry. So if you can pick up your production, you can both query, and if that doesn't go through and that is self-published, query your next public and try to query your next was written while you
Okay.
treat it like a job.
Yeah.
Insanieac wants to know, how do you go about adding Easter eggs to your writing, and what examples could you give if you're all right with a bit of a tease?
Some of my Easter eggs have to do with local community, the lit RPG authors. Sometimes I'll add Easter eggs about other authors into my book, characters. Some people put their friends in their books. I'll put in the names or post the names of other authors in the genre as show up as guest things for one of the characters, because a lot of times your characters are going around doing things and they interact with people. They do that. For pop culture references, I have a lot more Easter eggs in the Crafting of Chess sequel. I need to spend time finishing, but the pandemic is making it difficult.
Making everything difficult.
From TV and from movies. You'll find Monty Python Easter eggs. Basically, just little things. Sometimes they're direct references, sometimes they're oblique. I think that one of the advantages of Lit RPG is that you could have an Easter egg in the game that was put there by the game designer that is not necessarily an overt thing done by the main character. I find one of the easiest ways to put Easter eggs into a book is have be like Drax and Guardians of the Galaxy. It completely goes over the head of the main character. Therefore, the reader can feel very smart for getting that when the main character didn't. For one thing, everybody likes to have that Shiban, but anything that's fun. I mean, if you in the first book, there's a keychain that has like the police box, like little things from different culture, from different shows and stuff. And little Easter eggs showing that there's some connection between this fictional universe and the universe that we live in, and many of the cultural references the same.
Sarah?
Yes?
I'm guessing that just opened something up for you.
Oh no, I was really excited about the police box. Like Doctor Who, right? Like the TARDIS?
Oh yeah, that show that I watched.
I'm really excited. I got one that I painted like right above my head to make me happy.
And what about? So, sorry. Let me unpack that for a second. That was a lot. So, when you put in your Easter eggs, do you do it more as a character coloring? So, like when you said Drax, for example, I like to think that what you're doing is you're painting a character that resembles Drax, or at least how I would do it. I should rephrase it that. The way I would do it is I'd paint Drax, or I'd paint one of these characters that I know from pop culture, and I would paint them in with but giving them their own different personality, maybe their own spin. I'm just wondering if you're more overt, or you're more subversive than that. How do you develop that?
It is mixed. So it has to be in relation to the characters and their background. In Crafting of Chess, the main character does not really have a traditional child. So some things that are common in culture, he's really new to, or has less of a react. Sometimes it is kind of out of cultural context. I think an intelligence block, which is for a future space opera, I do have a Voldemort reference, which is used, but kind of the joke of it is that because it's something far in the past, nobody understands who that character is, and they have to use a fictional villain as an example that the audience get. Is that, but sometimes it's not a cultural reference at all. I have kids, and we read children's books. One of them is Those Darn Squirrels, and they make these the basically plans and stuff. So in one of the sequences, I have the main characters doing a planning session, and I have them have this exact same snacks that are mentioned in the book for their planning session that is used in Those Darn Squirrels. That's not a cultural reference. It is a direct Easter egg to the salt and vinegar chips and cherry cola or something. So it's kind of so you can have it as a tongue-in-cheek, something you like. You could have it as a direct cultural reference. You could have it be something that the main character cares about. So say part of, like, they want to be a Jedi, and they use that as part of who they are. Oftentimes, the more obsessive your character is, you kind of want to push that trait onto like a side character than the main character. Not to say you can't do it that way and work it that way, but having your side characters be the ones that are more passionate about the cultural references look easier on the reader. But I do go a little bit, like I said, I do go a little bit excessive sometimes with my Easter, especially in the sequel that I'm. There's like 2 paragraphs, 3 different Easter eggs, Dune one, Cloudy with the chance of meatballs in it as well, and then there's some other Easter egg that I snuck in. So, they're not all obvious. Like, I think I have the instrument that is in Dune as the Dune rap. The bird character playing this instrument. I want to have an Easter egg to a fantasy instrument. I looked them up and I'm like, I want that one. Can't quite remember the exact name of it. I googled it and
That's a cool idea.
And I agree. That's really cool. I can't say that, like, because I build science fiction, that I try to build my own technology, but I do research a lot of the science. So I try to bring real science concepts and then just take them to their extremes. So I completely understand. And so when I use a science concept like that, I then it is for me like an Easter egg in my books. But you also touched on something that's a lot of people don't talk about, that's really hard to write. And you said you wrote a children's book. And I actually did some children's stories classes in university, so I understand that it is really not easy to write a children's book. And so I sympathize with you on that. If you're able to create one, I kind of want to read it.
No, I actually haven't done a children's book, but it's an Easter egg from it.
I'm sorry, I misheard.
Okay.
But going around the table, Caden and Jeremy, do you guys have any questions?
Most of the ones I had written down were already answered, unfortunately.
Jeremy, I know you read the book as well. I can keep going. I have no problems.
I only got one today, so I'm only on like a little bit of the way through Intelligent Block.
Yeah, I've been reading that one too. I'm really enjoying it.
Well,
but you said your chess book was your bestseller?
It's the one that sold the most copies. Yes, it's the first book I published. It's so far sold the most copies and been the most popular, and it's the one that people have asked for the sequel the most.
Interesting.
Glad I picked it up.
Why?
Maybe you should rate your feelings on it.
Yeah. Do you have any reasons why you think that might be? Why that one's the most popular?
The lit RPG genre is one of the more friendly crowds, and they're generally most friendly to independent authors. And I just got more lucky with that. I mean, if you're reading Intelligence Block, it's kind of a B-list. I mean, not really B-list, but it's unique and it's hard to place inside a genre for me to find the audience to get it.
Yeah, I can see that. It definitely doesn't fit any genres that I can think of.
Yeah, it doesn't quite fit genres, so how am I gonna go kind of market it to the genre?
Yeah.
Hi.
RPG has a good subreddit, and it's easier to reach the audience, and a lot of luck.
That makes sense.
I just wanted to also add on to that because so a lot of writers, I know I've heard a lot of writers, at least in interviews I've seen, that sometimes the things that they actually become most popular is something they may not enjoy writing themselves. So did you enjoy writing the chess book? Is it something that, like, because you said you're writing a sequel, but is that something, because you mentioned it's the most popular, do you also enjoy, like, what, or is it, I guess the way I should put it, is it your passion to write that kind of literature?
I mean, I wouldn't have wrote it if I didn't enjoy it. It was originally intended for something that could be a trilogy, but I wanted to have the option of leaving it as a standalone. A lot of people are not exactly happy with the ending anyway.
Well, don't spoil it for me.
So they wanted to hear more, you know. So the disappointment at the ending, but so they wanted to know what happens next. So I mean, I'm not sure I'm gonna please everybody exactly with it, but they'll get to find out what happens next, you know. So I mean, but I enjoy all my writing. I find writing also to be extremely difficult. It's not the easiest thing. I mean, you saw the monkey on my back.
Literally.
Yeah, literally. I mean, I did enjoy writing intelligence block the most, but I choose to not go into writing genres that I'm not going to have fun with in any way. You know.
That makes sense.
Do you ever just write something? Because sometimes I'll write something to push myself out of my comfort zone, just to see what I come up with. Like I don't write high fantasy, but sometimes I'll sit down and just write a short high fantasy story just to see what I can do, just to push and see if I give myself new ideas. Have you ever tried that? Is that something that you do? I these are things I learned in university, so I don't know if they're widespread or just my crazy professors.
You know, that is a very valuable thing they teach you in university. Both it can broaden your skills, and then maybe you'll discover that you do like something like that. Now that is generally more difficult for a novel simply because the amount you have to do for a novel. So it's something. My always recommendation for that type of thing is to find one of the submission grinders for short stories. You could find them.
Oh yeah.
There's always going to be short story people asking for short stories or flash fictions or whatnot. For all the genres, find one of them and you complete that, and then you submit it. Therefore, you are not beholden to finishing a novel or something like that. You could say that you've completed something, and very rarely will that lead into a career in that type of thing. And it might disappoint if you do pick up fans from writing short stories or flash fiction. They might be disappointed in your other writing, but it's mostly. I think that when you do that, you should also make it a productive. Odds are it will not get accepted. You know, most submissions expect a lot of rejection, and you can add it to your file. Submit to other places you want to, or anthology later, just because you have it. If you look at my poetry books, I don't know if you got any. That is basically, if I wrote something, I feel like I should release it to the public in some form, share. I'm not a Salinger who's writing lots of. I can't share that. I feel that it is both valuable to share it with people, and it is just good practice.
Just to bring it back to writing, so, or like, I guess, concepts and execution. Another question I've had that I've been wanting to ask you is when so you released so many of these novels in a short period of time. I'm a slow writer, so was it something that you've been working these over the past decade or over the past few years, and then you just with COVID-19 you just had time to finish them? Because like I mull ideas around for years before I even like start to put them to paper. So I wanted to know, like,
it took a few years to do. It took like at least 2 years to write the drafting. It's taking me 2 years to write the sequel. It came out. expecting the sequel to be out next year in 2021.
Not pulling a George R. Martin and waiting 5 years.
But I can see I've had multiple projects. I had multiple projects I was working at the same time. Like I had like a third intelligence block while I was doing the crafted chest. I was doing the editing process, the difficult editing. I somehow managed to push through and complete that. When I did the current job, well, during 2019, I finished a chunk of that and felt I could push through and complete that. But it's really just 2 novels, a novella, a short story that was a submission. I submitted to an anthology and got rejected and edited it because it was supposed to be in somebody else's universe.
Mm-hmm.
So I basically did an edit of it, make it its own universe, and publish that. Progression of Power, 6,000 words. Just wanted to see how it would do.
So that leads me to another question. With obviously you're a dad, you have a child, so this must, I mean, making time for writing does take a lot of time. I didn't ask if you have a second job. Do you? Is writing now something that you can do full time? Like, I'm sure, like I said, COVID-19 must have helped, but how do you find time with juggling all this stuff? That's very impressive, at least personally.
COVID-19 has actually made it more difficult, from both the stresses from the situation and from the sorry, a minute. And from having to do the distance learning with the kids. Actually, I did most of my writing in 2019 when the kids were in school and I could go to the library and get out of the house. I didn't really have most of my work is housework, and it still takes a lot of time. And so I actually have not been able to get as much writing during this whole COVID time. And you actually see that common with writers. They're not always getting this extra time with COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
There are other stresses and other things that have to do with it. And for me, it actually hasn't been very good. I would have finished the sequel to The Crafting of Chess months ago if I had somehow managed to get my kids in school and not constantly climbing on me.
And I'm sorry to hear that, but at the same time, it must be, how do I say it? It must be at least nice to have the kids around. I'm sure, although you're not finding time to write. But before all this happened, you said you were just going to the library while the kids were at school, so you were still juggling a lot. And
yeah,
can I ask, do you have a significant other that works? Are you a single parent?
I have a significant other who works, and I take basically all of cooking and cleaning and stuff. Non-traditional spouses who cheaper for me to be the childcare and the chef and the cleaner than it is to have me go to work. Cost.
Of course, and obviously all the best. Obviously, I'm curious, but still, like, good for you for also being able to write in that time and publish, like I said, so many different books in so little time. You talked on future prospects. You're writing this the sequel to the chess book. I don't know why I don't have it in front of me. But what other projects do you have? Sorry, what was that?
The crafting of chess.
Yes, the crafting of chess. I was going to ask, what other projects do you have? Do you have other projects lined up? Have you started anything? At least maybe even a skeleton?
I have dozens of incomplete, and you never know And every once in a while, I will go back to some incomplete piece of fiction and go reread it. It helps that I enjoy reading my own writing. A lot of authors will read their own works. They hate it,
Yep.
I'm
Totally confused by that.
one of those.
Yeah.
So
I love reading my
reread,
handwritten.
I will reread my own work, and then I will decide if I can continue on. I have an idea for another novella. I know novellas don't sell that great, like a cultivation style, a progression fantasy that I've written a few pages on. Of the unfinished things, I have a lot of first pages or first of the ones that are more complete as another lit RPG, but it has to do with like rat battles. I actually enjoy epic rat battles of history a lot. Some of them are interesting aspects of that. It's like nobody reads my poetry, but I can fit songs into a book. So actually, kind of a virtual reality singing rap karaoke style. I do have an epic fantasy, which I have like 20,000 words written in, but kind of like it on that. I need to figure out how I would. So a cheese with cheese magus in it, and lots of silly things.
I got a question from chat. What inspired your writing? You can choose. I guess we'll start with the chess book since it seems to be your best seller. You're writing a sequel. And from the sound of it, it sounded like you've worked on it the longest, or am I mistaken on that?
It is the one that I worked on the longest.
So what? Can you talk about your inspiration and how you fueled that to write?
Some of my inspiration. Well, I read a lot. So a lot of the books in the genre that I have read, the aspects of it that I felt I could do better. Ready Player One has some other RPG books. Awaken Online, anime like Sword Art Online, Dot Hack, Log Horizon, and all of those things, all of that social media type anime, books, movies have influence in my writing. A lot of my influences are school, Diana Winjo, Tad Williams, fantasy, Lewis Master, which are sci-fi. Lots of things that I have read, all influence my writing.
To anyone who doesn't know Dot Hack and Log Horizon, you in the chat, you need to go watch those. So good. So good.
You just made John really excited by referencing those.
Oh. So rare to hear those names anymore. Just warms my heart.
The better Sword Art Online is the abridged.
I love this man! I love this man!
Version with characterization, humor.
It's so true! I've said that for years! Oh, I love this man! Oh!
But I mean, also like, my grandfather taught me to play chess, and so a lot of the chess influence comes from that. Read some novels with it. I mean, I have no Easter eggs like somebody's reading. He picks up the Valdemar book, Magician's.
Mm-hmm.
In the fact. In the sequel, I don't know if any of you watched Queen's Gambit. If you haven't watched Queen's Gambit, I recommend it. It's on Netflix.
Great series.
Great series.
It was a great series.
It's a great series.
Be a fan of player of chess to enjoy it. I referenced Beth Herman in the sequel as somebody I believe like throwaway line is some other chess player thinks that he's the next Bobby Fischer or Beth Hart. And there's a little Easter egg from that. And, you know, like I said, I mean, if you're gonna write, you can have fun. You can fill in these little Easter eggs, you know.
Not what the Russian guy's name is. Starts with the K. What was the Russian chess master's name? Oh, it's gonna bother me. Please keep going. Sorry.
You're just gonna go. Ooh, yeah. So many things have influenced my writing, and part of writing is taking all of those things and writing love letters in your writing. I feel like much of science fiction is those sciencey ideas that you want to grasp and write, add that love letter to the version of Faster Than Light Travel that you read, or to some aspect of science into the book.
Or if you want to write intergalactic space wizards into your science fiction, everyone knows you're somehow referencing Star Wars in some way. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. If you want to reference it, you should. I mean, I think everybody should.
Man, that sounds like
a lot of purists are like, no, you can't have something from the real world in your book. You know, I'm like, no, I feel like you should. I think it actually helps your writing, assuming that you can do it in just way.
Oh yeah, and that's what makes it fun, right? When you put something in reality. I mean, if we go back to the first horror / science fiction, Mary Wollston's Frankenstein, like, what is that? Using Tesla coils and electricity to revive someone? Like, it's just on the cusp of reality to fiction that it did itself. It's people still debate, is it more horror or science fiction? And it's just, at the time, it pushed the bounds just perfectly of what is real and what's possible. And that's the beauty of science fiction, because sometimes it does progress in that way. I mean, Star Trek came up with communicators, or no, that was Get Smart came up with a cell phone, and then all of a sudden it's a thing like 30 years later. Or like, or what we're doing now, like video calls, like, or flat screens. Oh man, that's why I love science fiction.
Yeah, automatic doors.
That make the choo noise.
Yeah.
Even Frankenstein has its own literary references written into Frankenstein.
One of my favorite books. So let's move aside from inspiration from the chess book. What about your other literary works? Where did you? I think I know my other co-host read the other ones. So where did you find inspiration for your other works?
For Intelligence Block, a lot of that is the Asimov quote that technology so advanced is akin to magic. I'm like, well, if I had technology so advanced akin to magic, why don't I do fucking magic?
Yeah.
So basically, they all have this level of technology, and there's a subset of people that are like, well, if I had the technology to do magic at such a level that it is fairly easy to do, that I'm going to do it. And Talos June is one of those people that is in love with using technology for magic, and I kind of built the world around that. And honestly, the very beginning, and even though it's a little bit out of place, the birthday party magician idea as well. It's not exactly flowing, but it makes sense in the story. I had fun.
And as long as you're...
I thought of when I was reading it. I read it and I was immediately like, oh yeah, that's so cool. It's really cool. I'm really enjoying the book.
And I think that's part of what makes writing, like, if you know you're going to write something good if you're enjoying what you're writing. Because then you have no... It's not... Because sometimes when I'm writing something, like a short story, and it just becomes a drag. It comes off bad, at least personally. And so I really like how you touched on that. That as long as you enjoy it, you can pretty much write anything as long as you're enjoying what you're writing. So getting down to the final time. Any more questions from the co-hosts or from chat?
If you could only read works written by one author for the rest of your life, which author would you choose?
Have to be somebody prolific.
Yeah, that's a good choice.
I have a favorite book per se. I enjoy the Bujold's books, her fantasy and her sci-fi, and she's quite prolific. My
Sorry, what
biggest
was the name?
used to read. What?
What was the name? I
Louis
didn't quite catch.
McMaster. What?
I didn't quite catch the name.
Bujold, the Verse Saga with Miles Verhoeven Naismith, and then she also wrote a fantasy series that is quite good that I can't quite remember the name of, Curse of something. But I find her to be one of the authors. I might, if I had that restriction, I might choose to read Brandon Sanderson's books.
There are a lot of them.
There are a lot of them. Like, I suppose if I had to, I mean, pick somebody that is that prolific. I mean, I know there are a few self-published authors nearly as prolific as well I could pick. Glenn Stewart, I had a lot of all of his. Basically, I'd have to pick somebody who writes in the genre I like and prolific.
That makes sense. Yeah. I guess you just brought up another question for me, actually. So as someone who likes to read, what is the best way to find self-published authors that are in a genre you enjoy? How do you go about it? Because my main way of finding books is walking into a bookstore or a library. But you're not necessarily going to find some really good self-published stuff that way.
Honestly, searching through Amazon, because there are other platforms that self-publish authors publish authors. But if you want ones that support them, you have two options. One is you do Amazon, because that's where the majority of them will be published, because despite being a kind of evil corporation, it generally gives the best royalties, it has the widest audience. You kind of search by the genres that you like, kind of narrow it down by the subgenre to dig, and then do research on like Reddit and other places. And other places are like the serial place. It's kind of like a revival of the old Sherlock Holmes style, the Royal Road, where a lot of people do like fan fiction, but they also do like serial.
Okay.
And you can find enormous things with millions of words that might be entertaining there, and then you go find that author's Patreon and go, you let me read this for free, here is some money on the Patreon to thank you. I mean, I have my own Patreon. But basically, I'd say those are the two biggest places to find them right now, but I mean, they're honestly everywhere. There's Wattpad and lots of other sites that people choose to write on.
Yeah, I've used Wattpad before. I will have to do more of that because I think I'm missing out on some really good books.
Yeah. And obviously on Twitch. I mean, I showed up and said hi, and now I'm on this podcast.
We're glad.
Further proving the fact that if you just talk a lot in the chat, you might make it on the show. I suppose we kind of jinked ourselves, but at the same time, we're definitely glad you're on. Like, I mean, I'm learning quite a bit. So again, thank you for coming on. But
actually, speaking of Insanieac, he has a question.
He did. I was just gonna say, He asked, what is your favorite part about being a writer?
It's not easy. Writing. All we write, and so you know that sometimes it can feel like you're slamming your head into a keyboard over and over again. Get those words to show up on the page. The best way to get past writer's block is to type one word at a time until you get past whatever scene or chunk you have. And even if it's awful, that's what revision is for. And oftentimes when you go and review it, it's not as bad as you think it is.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, it helps that I enjoy my own writing. So I'm writing for myself, and I enjoy reading my story. I'm a bit of a nut for the craft of fiction, for how it's written, about organization, plotting, and world building, and all of that. I'm a bit of a geek for writing things, and that helps. So I'll spend a lot of time thinking about how does characterization work, hooks, how to properly do a hook, and I feel that's all has helped me. But it helps that you kind of like the topic.
Definitely.
That's the important part.
I can utterly agree as the person who kind of picks the topics every week.
Sometimes you're the only one who knows what you're talking about.
And you know what? It's fun because that's the whole point of this is we're all learning. Sometimes I don't know what I'm talking about and someone else, that's why we bring on guests because they know more than I do. But that being said, I'd like to again thank our guest, Kit, for coming on. Please, we put his link in the chat. Support him on Patreon, and he has a Twitter, so follow him on Twitter, I think.
At WriteSkit. WRIESKIT. My Twitter. You can find all my stuff on Amazon. Just Google my name, my book.
His name in chat, Kit Falbo.
I can tell you, Intelligence Block is definitely a good book, and I would highly recommend it from what I've been reading so far. Very, very excited.
Definitely.
I agree on that one too.
I did pick up the Intelligence Block as well.
You should read it. It's great.
And
It's really good, yeah.
You've really helped. You've given us a lot of information. Thank you for answering all our questions as best you can.
Yeah.
You are definitely more than welcome to come back on in a later date. You know, for like a checkup if you want to come on. You know, for any reason if you want.
Hang out again.
Yeah, like it was definitely a pleasure to have you. All the best to you and your significant other and your kids. And yeah, is there anything else you want to say before I do my full sign off?
No, I'll be happy to come on again at some later date, maybe after I actually edit the sequel.
We would love that.
Time into that.
Sounds like a plan.
We'll finish the books. You can ask the book-related question if you want.
Always.
It should be fun.
Yeah.
Of course.
And to our audience, sorry you had nothing better to do, but this was one of our best shows, so I'm glad you spent it here. I'm C4 as always. Beside me is Sara Vike. Below me is the Great Grease Goblin. Across is Sir Jeremy. In the chat is Insanieac. And our guest, Kit Falbo, is to the far end. And we are your villains for the Villains Talk Show. Get the app at justlikeness.com or, just follow us. If you want, just press the follow button.
Not in real life. Don't follow
So,
us.
hey, you know what? I'm always down for following people. But thank you again all for watching.
Married, so.
Shows are Wednesdays and Sundays at 8 or 9 o'clock, depending on when we all get on, usually around 8, so that's the time. And things.
Things and stuff.
Thanks, Kit.
30 seconds. Keep talking.
But thanks, Kit. That was awesome. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, it was really great to be able to talk to you.
Yeah, it was. Thank you.